So once again, we wake up to headlines about German banks considering consolidation. We had a story about this on Friday as well. Does it make sense to you that we will see big M&A in German banking, because we've been talking about it for so long?
Boy, I tell you, Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank, recurrent Groundhog Day, right back in the news again. And I think you will see more consolidation at a national level. I think we see it here in the United Kingdom, Anna, and I think we're not surprised to see it back in the news in Germany. Of course, the elephant in the room is whether we're going to have more pan-European consolidation and the creation of pan-European champions, right, that will be able to compete on a more global level. But for starters, there's political pressure, there's policy initiatives and the like that are facilitating a national approach to stronger banks at a national level.
Big German banks have not been thriving recently. Does it make sense to put together banks that have not been thriving? Does it make sense something stronger, or does it just emphasize the weaknesses?
Well, you're right on point, right? Because we know that the leadership at Deutsche Bank has wanted to hold back and strengthen their balance sheet before being propelled into what they have historically described as the distraction and the challenges of effectuating a merger transaction and bringing banks together, right? Ideally, you move into those positions from a place of strength. But in fact, they're under so much political pressure. I mean, the German finance minister has come out and said that they'd like to see stronger national German banks. Of course, they have the state-sponsored banks in Germany. There's a lot of fragmentation in that sector. It does seem like there's going to be a movement in this direction. And then the next step will be what happens with the European banking reform and kind of pan-European at the global level as well.
Okay, Ruth.
And Bill, some of the other news we've been chasing over the weekend is this in the semiconductor space, with talks that NVIDIA is nearing an agreement to buy Mellanox in Israel. I'm just curious, do you see more big cross-border deals in the semiconductor industry, given the dynamics between China, which is the biggest consumer of the chips, and the U.S., which is the biggest producer?
Well, you're right, Ruth. Again, we have the intersection of deal-making with policy and politics, right? And so here we have NVIDIA reportedly edging out Intel for Mellanox, an Israeli-based company where the largest consumer is in China, right, and the largest producer is in the United States. So we have this intersection amidst the tariff tensions that are in the background here, right, of two businesses that want to come together in a fast-moving space. I think we will see more. I think the inexorable push and pull of non-organic growth is such that it will move ahead, notwithstanding some of the political noise, right, the tariff tensions and the like, and even some of the policy questions around foreign investment, foreign direct investment, what technologies are protected as critical infrastructures, which ones are not. I still think you'll see deal makers moving along like apparently NVIDIA wishes to be.
Bill, let me ask you about M&A volumes and size and scale and scope in general. I pulled up the M&A function on the Bloomberg, set it for M&A, not non-investments. And just looking at where we're seeing these deals taking place, North America, I mean, all of them down year on year, but North America looking much bigger in size than Europe in terms of the deals that we've seen. What do you see lying ahead for Europe in terms of M&A? What does the pipeline look like? Well,
I think that it can be a bullish outlook for Europe, but I do think Europe needs to take some of the fundamental steps to facilitate larger scale transactions. So we saw recently with Alstom and Siemens, right, a transaction in the rail space that could have created a pan-European champion, right? And it was blocked by Brussels, right? And it was blocked to the dismay of leadership in France and in Germany. Now, out of that moment of impeding pan-European transactional championing, right, there is now an opportunity. And the French and German governments have come together and they've said, look, we need to have a wiser regulatory framework and we need to massively invest in innovation.
There were some customers of Big Rail, though, of Siemens and Alstom, who called for it to be blocked as well.
You're right, Anna, you're right. But the counter to that was that the principals and the CEOs of Alstom and Siemens were saying, now, wait a minute, we have to compete with the People's Republic of China. And they're pretty significant players, right? And so when you looked at the regulatory framework, was it right to look at the competitive landscape just across Europe or more globally, with the Chinese becoming such an important actor across Europe, right?
But do you think the U.S. regulatory market is making it easier to do those kind of big consolidation deals, as opposed to Europe, where they're looking backward and saying, well, there isn't a Chinese threat or there isn't a threat from foreign acquirers?
It's a great point, Ruth. So look at AT&T at Time Warner, vertical merger. It was challenged. at the lower courts, and the lower courts rejected the challenge. It was appealed in the United States, and the appellate court rejected the appeal and let that transaction go forward. You look at the very large Disney transaction that has gone forward with some concessions, admittedly, but I think the U.S. policy and political climate is facilitating these very large-scale transactions, and I think it would be good for European lawmakers and regulators to do the same.
Quick word, Bill, on the UK market and what you're seeing there at the moment, because it is the busiest M&A market in Europe, the UK. Is that surprising to you, or is that what you get when the pound is at 129.98 against the dollar?
Well, I think London still remains just an economic centerpiece to the global economy, right? The stock exchange here, the PLCs, right? The size and significance of companies that emanate from the United Kingdom. It's a real source of strength for the global economy, Anna. And so I will look for that to continue. I'm one of those folks who thinks that Brexit is a significant event, but I don't think it's an outcome determinative event for the United Kingdom. I think the United Kingdom economy itself is too strong and too relevant at a global level to recede from the global M&A marketplace.
Okay.